Welcome to Energy Transition Dialogues, a hydrogen interview and a full court press. Catherine Sheridan from EIH2. Welcome, Catherine.
Good morning. It's great to have an opportunity to speak about hydrogen. It's my favorite go-to topic, so delighted to have this opportunity. Thank you.
Most welcome. I think hydrogen is like one of the buzzwords nowadays, isn't it?
Absolutely. It's like when you find out that everybody has just started watching your favorite television program. It's brilliant because you've got something to talk to people about. Hydrogen as an enabler of the energy transition, as a part of the jigsaw puzzle to bring together the electricity network and the gas network, is the key part of the energy jigsaw that we could all benefit from focusing on.
Right. And now you represent EIH2 and you are the chief operating officer for that. And I believe EIH2 is going to make a lot of news in terms of Ireland and being one of the first. Could you tell us a little bit about that?
Yeah, absolutely. So to tell you a little bit about EIH2, first of all, and then the Ireland energy system. So EIH2 is Ireland's first green hydrogen production company. And that's our ambition. We're not producing any green hydrogen right now. But what we're doing is we're looking at a number of sites around Ireland, both smaller sites to co-locate with perhaps energy production through onshore wind farms, and energy demand sites like transport. And we're looking at what would an energy project in those areas look like. We're also looking at the incredible opportunity that there is on the west coast of Ireland to convert our natural resource of wind via electricity into hydrogen, so that Ireland can play a key part in the energy transition as Europe transitions to net zero 2050.
Ireland has announced plans to get on board with Europe's green hydrogen ambitions. So in terms of that, in terms of the strategy set to be launched, how advanced is the Ireland market in terms of hydrogen?
Yeah, so to give a bit of context, Repower EU, which came out just a number of weeks ago, is looking to quadruple the European Union's ambition for hydrogen production. So it's going to increase to 20 megatons, 10 megatons of which are going to be produced within the 27 countries of the European Union, and then an additional opportunity to partner with other countries to import so that we can meet our energy needs in a sustainable way. So what does this mean for Ireland? Ireland actually has a very complementary energy system to countries like Germany. And to explain that a bit further, in Ireland, we have an island with a large wind resource. In fact, it's estimated that we have the potential to produce 80 gigawatts of offshore wind. Now, on an island like Ireland, even when we increase our electrification and increase our needs, that's probably about 8 times more than we need. And we do not have large indigenous industries like steel, for example. Whereas a country like Germany that's looking to import 80% of its hydrogen, that's a good complementary ecosystem for us to work with. When we talk about the European Union, in 2020, they came out in parallel with the hydrogen strategy and the energy system integration strategy, because the two go hand in hand, with hydrogen being the enabler. It doesn't just mean seeing electrons and molecules working together. It means seeing countries like Germany and Ireland working together, where a source and a sink don't have to be co-located to have an effective energy system.
So does this all come especially at a very important time now that the EU is kind of looking to further support the switch away from the Russian fossil fuels and move to a more hydro dependency economy? Is that something that plays a vital role as well?
Oh, Elena, you've really hit the nail on the head there. What hydrogen can enable is the opportunity for energy to play a massive role in geopolitics. So we have a chance now with hydrogen to store and transport energy, which means that we can have a new energy map. So at the moment, we have our traditional sources of fossil fuel energy, and not only do they have implications for the warming of our planet, but also we're enabling and financing war. So what we need to do is we need to look at new ways of doing things, not be hamstrung by the status quo, which says, there's traditional ways of using fossil fuels. But what we need to do is we need to say, right, energy is just the ability to do work. It's just a vector. At the moment, it exists in the form of solar and wind. Energy can be transformed from one form into another. So via electricity, we can turn it into hydrogen. by separating out water. And what that means is we can store energy and we can transport energy so that we can have a new way of managing how the world accesses its energy.
Now that you spoke about the transportation, which is a very, very important point, um, in terms of hydrogen transport and storage, for example, where exactly, I'm sure there are a couple of questions that come into the infrastructure of it being created and produced. So where exactly are you or your thoughts on the transportation and storage of hydrogen once it's kind of produced?
So in the context of Europe and Ireland, so when we look at Europe, the approach is to develop a hydrogen backbone, and the studies are going on. So the idea is that you would link up sources of energy to places where it can be used. So in Europe, it's going to be from the north in the Netherlands down through the industry-rich areas like in Germany and down south. And what that's going to mean then in Ireland is we're going to develop out local hydrogen networks. And then at a point in time, we could perhaps reverse one of the directions for our interconnector with the United Kingdom to transport energy that way. But just to back up a second, Ireland has a 2.7 billion euro gas network, and that is owned by the citizens of Ireland. And it's an asset that transports gas. Today, that happens to be natural gas, but it's very likely in the future that it will be hydrogen. So what's happening at the moment in Ireland is we're considering the energy transition through the lens of what's affordable, what's sustainable, and what gives us security of supply. So we're looking at all the assets that we have. In the first instance, there is a hierarchy of uses for hydrogen. So with hydrogen, it's really about using those sectors that you can't plug in. So for example, heavy goods vehicles or shipping or transport or high heat industries. But we may need to make decisions in Europe to facilitate the development of a hydrogen economy, to get enough electrolyzers up and going on the system. And for that reason, we may actually blend some of our hydrogen into the gas network so that we can get the economy up and going. But the gas network itself could transition to being a fully hydrogen network in parts. It's unlikely that we'd need the full distribution network, but there are parts of it. So major areas like in Ireland, it would be maybe Shannon, where there is steel, cement, airport, a gas network and an electricity network. In Cork, which is has a number of power plants, has an oil refinery and also has high levels of industry. So Dublin, as well as our capital, may have an opportunity to be an energy hub, to be a hydrogen valley, as it's known in the European kind of conversation at the moment. Sort of like the idea of Silicon Valley, that you have an area, doesn't again necessarily have to be all co-located, but this idea of developing hydrogen centers of excellence, bringing partners together to work to it. So for example, we could have a west coast of Ireland and Germany hydrogen valley, where we're using the wind that we have in Ireland as an energy vector, converted via the turbines into electricity and via electrolyzers into hydrogen. That hydrogen then could be used to power the factories in Germany that are making steel, but also, and very importantly, that are making the fertilizer that we in turn in Ireland will need to import for food security. And that's a key part of the energy transition as well. Unfortunately, we can't oversimplify things. We can't say, oh, let's solve the energy problem in isolation. We also need to consider what that means for food and what that means for affordability and the other difficulties that different countries would have.
The point that you mentioned in terms of getting hydrogen, or probably hydrogen blending with the existing energy systems. And I think Boston is doing something very similar with their Target 2030, where they are going to replace 1/5 of natural gas in their pipeline with hydrogen now. But now the question then arises is the term of energy poverty, where, the system is not well equipped for hydrogen yet. What is your take on that?
Yeah, and you mentioned energy poverty, and it's a major concern in relation to the energy transition. We have to make sure all citizens are carefully minded and there's a just transition. So if we take it sort of from the point of view of systems thinking, anytime we make a decision in relation to hydrogen and the energy transition, we have to consider what impact that's going to have on everybody. So in relation to, at the moment, we have a very politically minded energy system where geopolitics influences the price of our energy. we need to have the goal of a system that's independent from that. And in Ireland, we're looking at this idea of having a green, independent energy future. At the moment in Ireland, we import almost 90% of our energy into Ireland, and an awful lot of that is fossil fuels. So we need to move towards having energy independence. And for us, that is having our own natural resources that we're using in relation to how we power our country. And also for Europe, we have an opportunity at the moment to be a new source, so we can change how things are done in relation to that. You mentioned as well in relation to the blending. So at the moment, Ireland has a indigenous gas supply in the Corrib gas field, but that's contribution is minimizing over time as our renewable sources increase. But we're very reliant on importing gas through the twin interconnector from the United Kingdom. In the UK, they're looking at blending hydrogen into their gas network. So by default, Ireland is going to have to prepare. And also with European policy moving towards this need to be ready for a 5% blend by circa 2025, it means that we have to get ready. But thankfully, Gas Networks Ireland, our TSO, have excellent preparation work along with the National Standards Authority of Ireland and representative groups like Hydrogen Ireland, who are a member of Hydrogen Europe, and with bodies like Engineers Ireland and Wind Energy Ireland. And it's that sort of collaboration that's going to be needed to achieve the energy transition. We're talking about an energy future where renewable electrons and zero carbon molecules are working together. And that really hasn't happened before. But we need to precede that by something as basic as humans working together. So no longer having silos of saying, right, well, I work in gas, so I'm all around the gas, and I'm in electricity, and that's all I do. It's bringing everybody together and having this integrated energy system across energy types, across countries, and across traditions. So a big part of what we're doing in Ireland as well is trying to make sure there's a local supply chain so we can bring more people into the game. So the more citizens that have skin in the game, the more likely they are to be supportive of the infrastructure needs that we have in Ireland to gain the social license for the energy transition. In Ireland, there's a massive opportunity and the skill sets are being changed. So you'll see people returning to college to study, to be part of this transition. And also we're recognizing the need to bring as many different disparate groups in. So a massive part of it is equipping women. So for the energy transition, we're going to need everyone working together. We're going to need professionals, and we can't afford to leave any set behind. And for me in EIH2 and for me in the Irish energy sector, it feels as normal as anywhere else in society to be a woman working in this sector. And that's really exciting.
Talking about hydrogen and it being a part of now the new norm, some people might say, colorblind is also part of it, where there's different types of hydrogen. There's the gray, there's blue, and there's green. Would you say that there's a press towards greener hydrogen than blue?
Elena, I don't know about you, but I'm kind of bored of this need for us to describe the color of hydrogens. Nobody makes them do that for electricity. Nobody talks about pink electricity or blue electricity or anything, but there's this expectation. So let's think about it. Hydrogen doesn't really care how it's made. It's a molecule. It just keeps on being a molecule. And as we transition in Europe in relation to that, there's going to be different types of it. But let's focus on what the end game is. The end game is green hydrogen. And we in Ireland have an abundance of natural resources. So it makes perfect sense for us to be looking at green hydrogen in our context. We don't have nuclear energy generating on the island of Ireland, yet we import it. We use oil and gas generated electricity. So at the moment we have those difficulties. So I think in parallel, and it's an interesting part, I think, of the energy sector, this need to be comfortable with uncertainty and comfortable with imperfection and pragmatism. And as an engineer, I accept certain things as boundary conditions and say, okay, we are where we are. We have to keep the lights on. And today that means natural gas. It means in the future that there may be imported hydrogen from the United Kingdom, and that's very likely going to be blue or even gray. But as we move towards the end goal of a green hydrogen, that's the green independent energy future. That's the new geopolitics. That's the energy map that allows a sustainable, secure, and affordable energy for Europeans.
Another very important thing, I think, it's on a lot of people's minds, especially in terms of the hydrogen sector. It's relatively new. Now, we do need a lot of investment when it comes to this sector. And do we have nervous investors and is regulations a huge issue that is spoken about?
Yeah, so a couple of points there. I would say regulation. Everybody in the hydrogen sector looks forward to robust regulation for the energy transition. Absolutely. Look, hydrogen, it's 14 times lighter than air. It's non-toxic, it's odorless. So if there was happening to be a release, it would just float away. All energy has the ability to generate and create power. And for that reason, all of them have an inherent risk. So to be honest, if you were coming up with energy systems, having forecourts where you pump diesel into cars and let people drive off, you wouldn't come up with that. So we're better now. Hydrogen has been used for decades in industry, so we have experience of it. And it's now just making sure that we have the right experience and the right technical consideration. And that's why we need to involve agencies like the National Standards Authority in Ireland, like the Health Service Executive and the Health and Safety Authority, and the TSO. Gas Networks Ireland have been operating and maintaining gas safely for decades. They're exactly the right people that we need in the room to have it. So that's kind of from that point of view. As financiers recognize the need, both for their ESG reasons and for their regulation and also for doing the right thing. As they see the need to move away from fossil fuels, there's this money that's available to invest in doing the right thing. And for an awful lot of financiers, energy with the long-term returns, they see the benefit of investing in hydrogen. As the hydrogen progresses and as the industry progresses, you know, if you have a fossil fuel source, it's going to run out. But you know what? The wind's going to keep on blowing, not all the time, but it is always going to be there. And as long as you do robust investigation to prove that, you're actually de-risking your overall investment because you're going to be guaranteed the wind's going to keep on blowing there.
Absolutely true. And also, now that we've spoken about the EU quite a bit, I want to focus a bit on Ireland and see, in terms of not only investing but also being a part of the entire Irish energy security market. Does hydrogen seem to be a solution for energy security in Ireland?
Big time. So electricity is fantastic. You know, it's instantaneous. We're set up for it. We're used for it. But you cannot store energy in electrical form very easily. You can have battery parks that store an element of it, but you can't store enough. And this is where hydrogen plays a massive role. So in Ireland, our ESB, the Electricity Supply Board, are partnering with companies like DecarbonX and are looking at the opportunity for intra-seasonal storage of hydrogen. Gas Networks Ireland, through their pipelines itself, could provide a useful store of hydrogen. So the energy security piece is twofold. One, it's in the short term. Can we store energy on the island of Ireland in the form of hydrogen so that it can be used? But in the more long term, that kind of broader idea of security is if we have and are utilizing our own source, we have that independence. And also because of our connection with the EU 27, we have that opportunity to support not only the island of Ireland, but all of Europe. And I'll constantly broaden it out from Ireland to Europe because we just have too much wind. We have, and it's like, why would we look at the island and look at our resources and say, you know what, we'll only fill our own electricity needs and we'll let 7/8 of it go to waste. No, as proud Europeans, we want to play that role in supporting Europe because they need the energy that we have to give. And again, it's back to that complementary energy system.
That is true. And also Ireland has a very strategic role to play in terms of decarbonization when it comes to Europe. I think my last question would be something that I'm sure our viewers as well want to know. What is the future in terms of EIH2 moving forward? What are you looking forward to? COP27? Are you looking at the new, Fit for 55 policy that gets updated next month? Like, what's the next big news that we are looking forward to?
So what's really exciting for us in EIH2 is the opportunity to collaborate and to work with partners. So the Repower EU has the fantastic go-to areas designation for parcels of land within the island of Ireland and in Europe. So what that's going to do is it's going to help us as a country meet our energy needs in a way that ensures that birds and mammals and the other land users and the citizens are really considered and it's a right situation for it. The EIH2 are looking to partner with local companies. I mean, we've had a fantastic opportunity to decarbonize heavy goods vehicles. We've got lots of data centers in Ireland who are looking for our hydrogen. We're having really interesting discussions. I mean, a lot of people will know Ireland for its whiskey. So we're looking at helping Irish distilleries to become completely green through those sort of partnerships. But again, it comes down to this bigger role and our bigger ambition. Ireland is developing really important floating offshore wind projects. And what we're looking to do through our project in Bantry in Whiddy Island down on the south coast is we're looking at bringing ashore large volumes of electricity, having a strategic energy hub down there, partnering with either utilities or industries so that we can help Ireland have a green, independent energy future.
Fantastic. And with that happy note, thank you so very much for joining us, Catherine. It has been an absolute pleasure. And to all our viewers joining us as well, we will be publishing this interview on the Gulf Intelligence LinkedIn as well as Twitter. Have a wonderful day ahead.
Thanks very much, Elena. Take care.